Hey there team, welcome back to the channel, welcome to my overview of Grey Zone Warfare. This kind of snuck up on me a little bit. I'm not exactly what you would call like a mil-sim shooter type fan. However, it seems every time I dip my toes, I quite enjoy the excursion. And this isn't really an exception, we'll get to it, but you know, out the front, I really like this game a lot. For those not across it, I do overviews and reviews pretty much daily on the channel. This being an overview, I just have a look at the first 2 hours of the game because that's the Steam refund window. Steam reckons you can make up your mind in 2 hours. I kind of agree. Generally speaking, you're not going to change your mind 20 hours in about a game after 2 hours in. And this way I can just cover more games. It's short, it's punchy, it's under 10 minutes, that sort of thing. Triage what I will and won't review. So this game's really promising. However, it does have some early access issues. That's the main reason with the sort of mixed review. I recommend it, not necessarily in this state, but at the very least to wishlist and keep an eye on, especially if you are someone like me, a fair weather Tarkov fan, or rather is a bit intimidated or put off or choose your word salad by the heavy PvP nature of Tarkov. Now don't get me wrong, and I don't play a lot of Tarkov, I've been on and off it over the years. I'm not immune to the heart blood pounding thrill of getting in a really good PvP scrap in that game. It's just, for me personally, I don't really sweat PvP, and tracking its development over the years, and this isn't a dunk or bash on Tarkov, in fact it deserves every ounce of its success, though it's outrageously good timing that this game's come out right when Tarkov's shot themselves in the foot. But that's a whole other thing you can look into. But it has been fascinating watching people sweat and stream and push Tarkov as hard as possible, from all the jumping around and acrobatics and essentially squeezing a tactical slow-paced shooter as hard as you possibly can, and in the development cycle having to be a reaction to hotfix and patch and slow people down and put inertia in and all that sort of stuff. And it would seem like a lot of the dev time is dealing with the PvP fact, whereas this game has been quite explicit that it's very heavy on PvE. And that kind of cuts both ways because it's having outrageous, unexpected success at the moment, which is, as I understand it, causing a lot of server strain, which is the real big problem at the moment, a lot of sort of rubber banding and micro stuttering, but it's also bringing in a lot of sort of expats from Tarkov that kind of want it just to be Tarkov 2. And a lot of discourse I've seen is people complaining about how the PvP is very entry level, very shallow and secondary, which is in fact the design philosophy of this game from what I understand. It's supposed to be PvE with a sprinkling of PvP. Anyway, so that seems to be my 100-foot take on it as someone that doesn't really follow this stuff. But so far I really like it. It taps a different sort of vibe and aesthetic that Tarkov doesn't. Tarkov feels much more arena based. I know there is an actual Tarkov arena thing, but the smaller instances, they're actually quite big these days, but you know what I mean. They are these map instances that you go in and have X players and that sort of stuff. And this game is sort of pushing that in the other direction and going more in a, dare I say, kind of MMO, but in the same way that something like The Division or Ghost Recon might do MMO, right? So it's sort of mass PvE. I don't know how they're doing their instancing or shards or whatever, but essentially you start at a headquarters, you pick one of 3 factions, and they're sort of geolocated in different parts of the map. And from there you can do vendors and tasks and all the sort of stuff that you would do, and the comparisons to Tarkov are unavoidable, but the same sort of things that you would do between missions. And then you call in like a little Huey helicopter and fly yourself out to an LZ, and all of it is kind of persistent. There's no real load screens, or you know, they cover them very well. So you get in your helicopter, you fly out to your LZ, and then you go into, like, for now it's kind of a starter town, but you can see the game will move further inwards as you level up and get more tasks with vendors. But it has this contiguous open world vibe to it that Tarkov kind of doesn't have, at least not yet, at least at the time of this recording. And it's really quite cool, and you bump into other PMCs and have a little bit of a chat with them, and blue on blue is a bit dangerous. I think I put a round in someone and someone else put a round in me, so I guess that's karmic justice. But this sort of jungle, open environment, very different from Tarkov, and personally, and this will be a personal thing, that appeals to me much more. It leans a lot closer to sort of lone survival, as opposed to Yugoslav urban conflict. It's got all the staples so far that you would expect, customizing weapons, vendor levels, that sort of thing. I don't know a lot about the world because it sort of just jumps you in straight away, but according to the map and all that, it seems that there's been some sort of ground zero event. I can't tell if it's nuclear or whatever, but you're like a PMC. I picked the kind of altruistic, almost Elon Musk led, some sort of money man has made a sort of like a UN adjacent mercenary outfit where the UN won't go in. They've all pulled back. So there is some sort of world building and backstory, but it didn't seem really accessible to me. Like, I'm not really sure where I could read about it, but I'm kind of intrigued. But yeah, the flow state works really well. Moving through it's quite busy, and again, the comparison to something like The Division is a lot closer in some ways. Don't get me wrong, it's still a hardcore sweaty mill shooter, but you still have a lot of traffic of players going into the start sort of area, and the respawn cycles on dudes coming back through is pretty high as well. So like your point-to-point encounter time is much higher than, I would say, Tarkov, but there's still that lethality. And I've managed to shoot dudes in the head and one-tap them, and I've also seen these PCP motherfuckers tank, 20 body shots as well. I've died a couple of times, and you go into like a sort of coma mode, and from what I understand, that's more like, because this is supposed to be co-op, but I've just got the one key and this is sort of review conditions, your mates can kind of treat you in that coma situation and try and bring you back from the brink, which is pretty cool. However, I did manage to corpse run back into my same instance and get all my gear back as well, so that's cool. The medical system seems pretty involved. There's an entire medical tab. You can try and figure it out. I did a little bit of Googling and that, and I like that. I like a lot of these mechanics. But again, the really big negative, like I know I'm singing praises, is that it has some sort of server stability issue. The performance isn't really a problem. I think I had maybe some caching issues in the beginning. I tried turning it down from like ultra to high, and that worked a lot better. I found that when I turned to medium, I got almost no difference, arguably a worse difference, and that presumably is because it's caching different textures. But I don't want to speak outside of my expertise, but I could not mitigate the micro stuttering. But stuttering again is a performance, usually a hardware issue. It's not, it's micro rubber banding. So it's a lot, it's consistent, it is kind of frustrating. And the game teeters on the edge of unplayable and playable, and that's the best I can do to describe it. Sometimes rubber banding just makes a game infuriatingly throw it away. This you could and can suffer through it, and I really do wonder how much of that is because this game is having kind of an outsized explosive reception, right? There's a lot of people picking it up, and short of that performance, it's being widely praised. It's got mixed reviews, but all of this is pretty much performance related. And I do feel that it's a bit of a chicken and egg. It is a smaller sort of indie company making this game, and they're getting outrageous player influx, which probably is great. That's good news for them, but that's why we're all getting these sort of issues, because I doubt that they can scale up fast enough. So it's one of those things. I'll probably check back in it in a little bit to see how it's going, but buyer beware. Thematically, it's really quite wonderful. Again, if for whatever reason you're just not really big on the sort of Tarkov PvP sweat scene, and again, it's nothing against those who sweat, but I do realize that there are a lot of people that would probably rather just play a bit of a sweaty co-op game together. Like Ready or Not actually comes to mind, and there would be fair comparisons here. I really love Ready or Not, and I got a group together and we were really getting into it and put a lot of time into it, which was kind of unusual for all of us. We love gaming, but we're all fairly, casual in our tastes. So maybe you find yourself in that space. Maybe you played something like Ready or Not and you really loved it. This is probably a game that you would really, really like too. So yeah, that's my thoughts. Grey Zone Warfare, really cool, really interesting. I wish it nothing but success, and I really do hope it overcomes this server stability launch window before it negatively impacts its success in the long run, because in the gaming release space, your opening week is over in a flash and the repercussions can be eternal. So fingers crossed they nail it. But yeah, check it out. Anyway, team, might just leave it there for the time being. I'll catch you guys on the next one.